What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was a Kryptonian in Marvel Part 5. Now let's begin. Time skip the next day. So to recap, you fought Omni-Man and beat him up so much you had to heal him, and then you helped the people that Mark accidentally hurt because of his dad. Jean summarized all that occurred in a few phrases since they had been talking about it for 30 minutes. Yes, Naruto said as she sighed. Jean can't exactly be furious at him for beating him or healing others. He could have at least told her, but they don't really have a method for that anymore since they are in a new world. But he did say he would seek aid from a person called Cecil, right? She said. Yeah, maybe with his resources he could find a way to take us back, and maybe he can take us through the Speed Force string after he sent enough energy through it, he said, and offered her two of his ideas to go back home. And even though he left the castle back there, he wants it back. Well, Hera and Naruto have plans for today, and even though they might be weak at the moment, when Naruto gave her access to draw magic from his core, as he can at least defend himself, but Hera is weak at the moment, but she asked Naruto to train her in fighting in different areas that she may need in the future, and Naruto agreed. Naruto said he managed to figure this application out as a realm lord. Even though he is really far away, he can still draw some energy. Jean looked like she recalled something. Oh, and what did you do to that asshole Sinclair, was it? She questioned him because, during the night, he went to the Pentagon and broke in, destroying Sinclair's study after erasing the majority of it. He is aware of what he has done to others. Naruto informed her what he had done, and she nodded pleased as she followed Hera over to train, opening a gateway and feeling some of his power being used so he would know if they wanted assistance. As they departed, he started flying over to the nearest desert. As he landed on the ground, Naruto reflected about when he had healed people and realized that he had squandered part of his power as it seeped out of the spell. To avoid the leak of magic, Naruto begins performing some simple spells and addressing any complications that arise as a result. Time skip. 5 hours later, he did this for a few hours and is pleased to report that he can now utilize his powers even more effectively. Back in the Marvel Universe, he squandered some magic carelessly since he had access to the Phantom Zone, which caused him to forget this truth, but he fixed it. He glanced up and promptly decided to take another sun dip. After the first one, he grew tremendously more powerful than before, but now he doesn't believe he has the luxury of waiting to return to the Marvel cosmos. Naruto continued flying towards the sun, and he soon found himself a few kilometers from its surface, feeling it boosting him up even more. He gently moved inside, and he could feel his body changing as a result of his adaptation. Naruto entered the center of the sun and started channeling as much energy as he could into the Speed Force. He performed this for many hours before returning to Earth. Somewhere a creature was strolling alone on a desert planet, his body healing owing to the orange sun surrounding the planet, which granted him tremendous abilities. However, rather than being pleased with his newfound ability, he became angry with himself. Zod Pav Zod was upset because he had been repeatedly defeated and humiliated by Kal-El. He has been wandering for a few hours bathing in the rays of this orange sun, and although they strengthen him, they do not have the same quality as the rays of the star that planet Earth circles. Zod observed a spacecraft flying that seemed to be scanning the planet, and despite the fact that he did not know any of the species on board, he flew over and was tempted to break into it, but he needed the ship. As the scanner passed over him, several of the creatures within emerged. This planet is now owned by the Viltrum Empire, remarked one of them, pointing a weapon at him. Zod utilized his heat vision to board the spacecraft, killing the majority of them but leaving several alive since he knew they were the pilots. The Viltrum Empire sounds interesting, he thought as he ordered one of them to show him whatever information they had about it. Well, isn't that interesting, Zod commented, noting the kind of star that their homeworld circles. Take me to this Viltrum, he demanded, his eyes glowing crimson, and they started to go over there. Sir, it will take us a few weeks to reach it, one of them said, shuddering with horror. Zod snarled, but maybe this strategy requires him to be stronger. Some of the data claim that these Viltrumites are highly powerful, which he cannot refute, but they are feeble in contrast to a solar-powered kryptonian. This is one of their throwaway scout ships. Take me to the second nearest yellow star close to the Viltrumite homeworld, he told me. Right away, sir, he said, hurrying away. Zod was listening to everything aboard the ship since he didn't trust them not to attempt to murder him. What are these Viltrumites? Zod thought, having never heard of them before, but he rejected the concept for the time being, as he intended to spend a few days next to a yellow star. He will have to take over his base since he possesses records and knowledge on what remains of Krypton, Zod thought to himself. recognizing that his stronghold could not be destroyed. If it knows how to build a gene codex, he will have to travel to Krypton's remnants to collect DNA, but Zod is unsure what else is necessary. Feora learned at Kal-El's headquarters that he maintained a record of his talents as well as other vital information about his interactions with other stars. This is why he is going toward Viltrum, since their star is blue. I realize it is not blue, but you all know that Zod has only ever had a few days of contact to the sun, and it is not the Man of Steel Zod. Time skip 1 week later. Naruto's POV. So, you really think this will work? Asked Hera as I had just completed explaining that we may be able to get back home using the Speed Force, because when I got back to my sun dip and put as much Speed Force energy into the string, it swelled in size by at least 4 times its original size and is still rising. We can try to use the Makluan rings or the string connecting me to our multiverse, I told Jean and Hera. Jean knows a little bit about the Speed Force, but Hera doesn't, and she knows I don't trust her enough to tell her about it. So you just take a few more dips in the sun, and we can go back? Asked Jean. Maybe, but I'll have to spend a long time in the sun to generate enough energy to safely return home, and if I can't, I'll try to build a machine to help us get back, I informed them, as I now have 3 possibilities, but I'm certain that the Speed Force will be the safest. Well, we have to go train again, so what will you do then, Naruto? Asked Jean. I was planning to visit Mark and maybe try to get some more energy, I said. Okay, she responded, kissing me before leaving with Hera. I wonder whether I can convert the kinetic energy of objects into energy. I know Wally West can do it. Perhaps I'll give it a shot. Time skipped 3 hours later. Perhaps I shouldn't do this again, I told myself, staring at the waterfall that seemed to be stuck in time. It kind of worked, but I extracted much too much kinetic energy from it. I approached and touched it, and as I did, a type of ripple ran around my finger as it expanded outwards, and in a few seconds, the waterfall was back to normal. It didn't offer me as much speed as I'd want, but it only used approximately 1/10,000,000th of my core. This is hardly surprising given that my core strengthened significantly after my sun dip, and I continued to pour more energy into it. When I feel my dimensions, I groan with disappointment. I could still feel it earlier, but it seemed far away. Nevertheless, it appeared to be moving closer. I'm becoming extremely excited about it since I can feel the connection growing stronger, but I'm worried that it will spread itself too thin for me to get through it. I guess I will have to wait until it is close enough, I muttered to myself, a little pleased that my dimension had arrived. I fly over to Mark and see him kiss Amber as she exits his home. What the fuck, man, I thought to myself as I went down to check how he's doing and inquire about this chick. I soared down and waited for him to reach his room before knocking on his window. When he entered his room, I tapped on the door, and he seemed surprised but gave out a modest smile as he opened it, and when he noticed my frown. "Oh, shit, you saw that, didn't you?" remarked the man. "Yes, I did, Mark, and can you please tell me what is wrong with you?" I questioned him as I entered his room. "Listen, I really like Amber, and she gave me another chance," he said before being interrupted. "She gave you a chance, but you should have given her a chance instead. She left you after you saved her life, and when you went over to her house and told her that you were invincible, she said that she already knew who you were. And then when your father turns out to be an alien conqueror and beat the crap out of you and kills around 100 people, you still go back to her," I told him. "Okay, when you put it like that, it sounds bad," he remarked, and I narrowed my eyes, causing him to swallow. I was about to continue, when I heard something entering the atmosphere. "Mark, suit up, something just entered our atmosphere," I remarked honestly as he started to transform after he nodded at me. I turned over to see what had entered, and I got inquisitive about who the orange alien was. "Somewhere else, this planet is dead, but it appears to have enough resources for me to build a new ship until I can find my previous one and retrieve the data," said a robotic voice coming from a purple and green entity. "There seems to be a few anomalies, some of the stars visible do not match any database in my archives," said the entity as its robotic voice took on a more perplexed tone, but then it took on a more serious tone. "Determining location status. Unknown," it said as it peered about and scanned again. "Beginning construction procedures," it stated as it raised one of its arms and opened its body as tentacles with lasers started mining and grabbing surrounding materials and began to create a spacecraft for its ultimate voyage to other planets and add them to his collection. "This is a highly knowledgeable individual. Naruto's point of view. Who is this?" Mark was approached by both the orange alien and myself. This is Alan, and I'm dressed as Superman or Naruto, whichever you prefer," he said with a small smile as my eyes widened and one of my eyes began to twitch. I approached Mark and playfully gave him a noogie. You were not supposed to use my human name. I was quite frustrated with him as the orange alien, introduced as Alan, interrupted me from giving him the punishment he deserved. Okay, I'm glad to see you're doing well, but I have to give you a warning, Alan said. Mark questioned, warn me? I released him with a stern look, making it clear that our interaction was far from over. When I returned to the coalition of planets to inform them about my visit to Earth instead of Urith, they were absolutely furious. Earth is strictly forbidden due to the presence of a Viltrumite residing there, he said with a grave tone, instantly grabbing my attention. Oh, that, said Mark as we soared towards the moon. Hold on, what you already know, Alan expressed his confusion about our knowledge of the matter. Oh, yeah, replied Mark. I don't understand, said Alan, perplexed, as he settled onto a rock that Mark had kindly positioned for him. Meanwhile, I remained airborne, observing the scene. Please have a seat, as I will be providing you with a detailed explanation, Mark stated as he proceeded to share his extensive knowledge. I inquired about various events that occurred prior to our meeting, prompting Mark to answer my questions. When he mentioned the existence of Martians on Mars, it did catch me off guard, but I didn't give it much thought. Eventually, we completed the task as I described how I managed to defeat a Viltrumite mostly on my own, despite Mark's assistance being less effective. So you have a unique background as a Viltrumite, with your father's attempted takeover of the planet and the intense battle that ensued, he said, his gaze filled with a mix of nervousness and fear. There is no need to fear me, unless you pose a threat to Earth. In that case, we will encounter difficulties, I said the last part with a stern expression, causing him to swallow nervously. So, what is your profession? He inquired of me. I responded, oh, I am a kryptonian. I have never heard anything about a species that could beat Viltrumites one-on-one. Maybe your kind can be the advantage we need. Can you tell me their location to get in contact with them? He asked, and I couldn't help but put on a sorrowful expression, which he quickly picked up on. I said, my homeworld has been destroyed and it appears that I am the sole survivor of my species. Oops, my apologies for, he began speaking before I interjected. No, it's fine. Based on the information I have, they deserved what happened to them. However, compared to the Viltrumites, they were less focused on conquest. They did engage in wars, but mostly in self-defense or retaliation. It's worth noting that during their expansion era, they primarily established colonies on uninhabited planets or those with abundant resources but no sentient life, I mentioned. Wow, just from that, they seem far superior to the Viltrumites, he remarked, and I couldn't help but suppress a sigh at the lack of intelligence displayed by the Council of Krypton. Despite the absence of large-scale wars in the universe, one would expect a higher level of professionalism. However, they engaged in internal conflicts and experienced significant civil unrest, I remarked. Their arrogance became evident as they started to believe in their own perfection. The decisions made by the Council of Krypton only exacerbated the situation, as they forced the abandonment of colonies and the return to Krypton. Eventually, the depletion of natural resources became inevitable, and yet another ill-advised blunder was made by mining the core of the planet. They were taken aback by the final portion. The planet eventually became unstable and eventually exploded. I was sent to Earth with the intention of living my life to the fullest, not to conquer it or anything like that. I completed the task. Wow, that's quite a story, and I'm sorry to hear about the challenges your people are facing. Can you lend us your expertise in our battle against them? He inquired. Certainly, I just require some time to adequately prepare for my temporary departure. After careful consideration, I realized that I could utilize my professional dimension to enter and exit the Marvel multiverse. However, it is important to note that it will take approximately 2 weeks for the dimension to reach me. Dude, I'm not so sure. My dad is strong, but there might be someone even stronger among their ranks, Mark said, expressing his concern for me. I am confident, don't worry about it, but I will require a minimum of 3 weeks to organize my affairs, I informed Alan. Sure, I'll be back to take you to the coalition, he said with a touch of enthusiasm. Now, how am I going to inform Jean about this? I pondered as Mark appeared deep in thought. Fast forward 2 weeks. Naruto's perspective, the 2 weeks flew by. It was a great relief when Mark ended his relationship with Amber. However, she later attempted to cause trouble for him with the law. Thankfully, Cecil was able to persuade her to remain silent about Mark's identity. I have also developed a closer relationship with Hera, although it is a gradual process that we are actively working on. She informed me that I have the legal right to claim her as my spouse, as I have inherited everything that Zeus owned, including her. To be completely frank, I simply informed her that the decision of whether or not to be with me is entirely up to her. However, she mentioned that she doesn't have anyone left. Demeter was among the earliest casualties. Hestia departed and found refuge with a different pantheon. Ares showed little concern for her, appearing to embody a more aggressive and warlike nature. Hephaestus was the sole survivor of Olympus, rescued by other pantheons in a collective effort after Zeus sought a weapon capable of eliminating anyone who stood in his path. Adamantine possesses remarkable magic compatibility, rivaling only that of Uru. However, acquiring adamantine is a relatively simpler task compared to obtaining Uru. Zeus lacked knowledge on obtaining the metal, unlike Hephaestus. Based on what Hera told me, it seems that there is a significant amount of it on Olympus, which got me quite excited. She agreed to be with me on a few conditions since she knows I am dating Jean, that I compensate her and any other woman that joins me with equal attention, ensuring no favoritism. I will inform Jean or her about the individuals who will be joining and emphasize the need to obtain their approval beforehand. Third, we all marry each other, which made me pause and question the reasoning behind it, not that I have any objections. She explained to us the reasons behind her resentment towards Zeus and his unfaithfulness. She experiences significant emotional distress, rather than physical harm. She described a horrifying scenario where one can only imagine the immense pain and suffering inflicted upon someone. That sounds like a difficult experience, but Hera endured it because her main domain is marriage, which is why it affected her so deeply. Jean and I agreed to all those conditions, and in that moment, our connection deepened. As our lips met for the first time, I could sense the anticipation and vulnerability in her trembling lips. When we finally pulled back, I noticed a blush on her face as Jean and I exchanged glances, sharing a silent understanding. In that tender moment, we both embraced Hera, our hearts filled with warmth and affection. She described how Zeus would physically harm her whenever he became enraged, treating her like an old toy that a child no longer cares about. That evening, we all shared a bed, simply embracing one another without any other activities. My train of thought is broken when Mark shows up, carrying a bag on his shoulder. "Hello, Mark, are you prepared to embark on a new adventure?" As he landed, I extended an invitation for him to join me in exploring the zone, a pathway that connects here to the Marvel multiverse. I am also capable of re-entering the zone once more, and my abilities have fully returned, including my heightened adaptability. This has brought me great satisfaction. Although I have yet to return home, I am confident that we can navigate through it while I provide protection for everyone. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit apprehensive about going somewhere new for a while, which is really underestimating how big of a deal it is, he responded with a sense of being completely overwhelmed. I reassured him that we would return shortly after we left, which initially left him a bit confused. However, he eventually agreed, understanding that he needed some time to himself after the recent events with his dad. Additionally, he expressed his desire for me to train him, and I agreed on the condition that he would assist me when needed. Using the Speed Force, we can effortlessly return to Olympus moments after we departed. I invited Mark to join me after giving him a brief overview of the multiverse. I didn't disclose much additional information because I didn't have confidence in him. "We are prepared as well," Hera stated, emerging from the apartment with a few bags. I effortlessly levitated the bags using my telekinesis, while Jean approached and gave me a gentle kiss. "So we are going back finally. I want my full powers back," she said, expressing her disappointment. I had already explained to her why we spent the entire weekend practicing magic, but I still had my powers intact. This made me wonder if her powers were somehow connected to other dimensions in the Marvel multiverse. "Is everyone prepared?" They nodded in response to my request. I opened a gateway into that zone while ensuring their safety from any harm. I have a spear strapped to my back, ensuring that I don't leave it behind. As we entered, I confidently guided us into the zone, fully aware of every nook and cranny of this place. I started utilizing the Speed Force to ensure our arrival just moments after departing Olympus. Arriving at the fortress with a dramatic crack of lightning. "Did we arrive on time?" Jean inquired, while I approached a monitor to verify the date. "We arrive an hour after our assault on Olympus," I said, slightly disappointed that we didn't arrive at the designated time, but we were still fairly close. Jean started to emit a vibrant orange-red glow. "Yeah, we're back," she exclaimed with joy as she soared through the air, creating mesmerizing circles of fire. "We have returned home," I said with a sense of relief, feeling the exhaustion in my body after conserving my energy in the zone. 1 week later. Naruto's perspective. Mark, let's step up our game, I encouraged him during our training session in the fortress. You are incredibly efficient, he responded, which made me frown slightly at my new predicament. I am highly capable. 3 days ago, I released a sigh that had enough force to part the clouds, coinciding with the rain that day. I understand, Mark, but I have a simulated room that allows me to fully unleash my abilities while still maintaining control, I explained. I am creating a state-of-the-art facility similar to the danger room. Fortunately, I have incorporated magical enhancements into it. Additionally, I have devised a personal strategy to utilize this facility for my own benefit, enabling me to achieve strength and growth at an accelerated pace. I am considering acquiring a star from Mark's universe, specifically one of a blue hue. Using the danger room in conjunction with the time stone, Eye of Agamotto, and blue star allows me to absorb energies at an accelerated rate. However, I must enter a deep meditative state to fully harness its power. I am in the process of having it built and plan to make modifications later. Yeah, that room sounds impressive, he said, struggling to catch his breath after the intense punches I had been delivering. The force of my blows created shockwaves that reverberated around us, leaving him breathless each time. I have also been teaching him some martial arts, and I must admit that having someone to train with while flying has been incredibly beneficial. Mark then proceeded to descend back to the fortress. As we entered, I informed Mark that I would be resuming my practice. He acknowledged with a nod and made his way to the medical area for healing. Currently, I am honing my newfound abilities bestowed upon me by a higher authority, with the guidance of a knowledgeable mentor. Upon our return, I attached Zeus' spear to myself, thereby gaining his powers. However, similar to my experience with Zenith, I must ascend to godhood in order to fully harness its benefits. I even raided Olympus after Hades departed, and to be honest, he appears quite relaxed in comparison to his DC counterpart. I have become more proficient in harnessing lightning-related magic, making it easier for me to use and significantly increasing its power. I accomplished the remarkable feat of demolishing an entire mountain with a single bolt. As someone who is not a deity, or at least not in the Greco-Roman tradition, I don't rely on the faith of others to maintain my abilities, which is definitely an advantage. Additionally, my control has malfunctioned again, so I also require training with that. During my expedition to Olympus, I meticulously collected various treasures, carefully examining each one. However, my most significant discovery was Hephaestus' forge, which contained a plethora of valuable materials. Among them, the most remarkable find was approximately 3 tons of adamantine, although it is unfortunate that its quantity cannot be enhanced by PIM particles. I discovered something truly remarkable: a tiny rock of Uru enclosed in a small container. Hera herself confirmed its authenticity, but what makes it truly extraordinary is that it is completely devoid of any absorbed magic. Hephaestus possesses the remarkable ability to manifest a wide array of crafting materials at will. However, due to the immense density of Uru, he has been primarily limited to working with this material for countless millennia. It's quite understandable given the scarcity of Uru. It's quite fascinating how often we encounter them in comics and movies, yet their true rarity remains elusive. I discovered Hephaestus's notes on adamantine and Uru, and he suggests that it may be possible to combine them. Although he didn't complete the experiment, I will pick up where he left off. I also acquired his enchanted adamantine tools. During my exploration of Zeus's home, I stumbled upon a journal detailing the arrival of the Celestials on Earth. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to overcome the overwhelming numbers of his adversaries, resulting in the defeat of not only himself, but also every pantheon on Earth. It became apparent to me how vulnerable he truly was prior to his demise. Being able to eliminate a Celestial was an accomplishment that would have captured the attention of every empire in the universe, showcasing Earth's exceptional prowess. I couldn't help but shake my head as I soared through the air, conjuring clouds and honing my skills with thunder. After a span of 5 hours, I informed Mark about my departure for my apartment, and he accompanied me since I had offered him the one directly beneath mine. I walked into my apartment and saw Hera sitting on the sofa, clutching a pillow and blanket, her face flushed with color. "What brings you here?" I asked her, causing her face to flush as she gestured towards our room. "Okay," I said calmly as I made my way to our room. Upon entering, I felt a surge of excitement that would have been impossible to conceal had I been wearing anything other than my professional attire. Jean is dressed in revealing attire, exuding a seductive expression as she beckons with a finger to approach. I closed the door and ensured complete silence before engaging in an intimate moment with her, sharing a passionate kiss while embracing her sensually. Naruto's perspective. I woke up with Jean's unclothed body on top of me. Last night was incredible, I thought to myself as I held Jean closer to me, reminiscing about our unforgettable time together. I noticed the time on a clock and observed that it was already 3 p.m. We continued working until a little after sunrise, and I only decided to take a break because Jean passed out. My endurance is currently lacking as I am still maintaining an intimate connection with Jean. It feels satisfying, but I didn't want to disturb her sleep. Upon closer observation, I noticed that she was peacefully sleeping, a gentle smile gracing her face. So I patiently waited for her to wake up, which took her about 20 minutes. When she finally stirred, we both let out a pleasurable sound, as I remained inside her. She kissed me as I responded, and after a few minutes of making out we decided to get out of bed as it was quite late, and while I don't have to eat, Jean does. After a span of 4 hours, I am meticulously inspecting all the items I received from Olympus. Some armor and weapons may not be of much use to me, as they are quite outdated and not suitable for my needs. I am currently testing the effectiveness of Uru when expanded by PIM particles, and I must say, the results are quite impressive. Exceptional. That could just be me, but I can't help but recall the time when Deadpool expanded Thor's hammer to defeat him. During my mission, I carefully managed my resources and took the necessary precautions to ensure the stability of the enchanted ground beneath the massive quarter-mile mountain of Uru. The decision to construct the room using genuine adamantium was highly ill-advised. I examined Hephaestus' research on Uru and came across some fascinating accounts of an unidentified pantheon discovering a massive Uru deposit. According to records that Hephaestus found in Athena's library, this deposit is believed to be the largest ever found up until 2 years ago. Nevertheless, when Odin and the dwarves of Nidavellir discovered this, they engaged in a conflict with this pantheon. However, it cannot truly be classified as a war, as they utilized the Bifrost at maximum capacity to eliminate the majority of those gods and mercilessly exterminated the remaining few. The majority of the Uru deposit was utilized to craft the casing around the star in Nidavellir from Infinity War. The images depicting its appearance allowed me to easily identify it. Well, that certainly sheds some light on how they managed to contain the star, I murmured quietly. It reminded me of Athena's unfortunate incident with her library, which was tragically destroyed when Zeus essentially handed her over to the Hindus. Despite the circumstances, she seems to be thriving, as they have graciously offered her a position as a librarian and historian, even providing her with a salary. I feel a sense of disappointment when I realize that I ended up defeating 4 Greek gods, as they were the last ones and they were in a weakened state. I shake my head in disbelief as I meticulously examine it, realizing the immense challenge of forging Uru and the daunting task of blending it with adamantine and, if possible, proto-adamantium. As I continue reading, it becomes apparent that Hephaestus documented several theoretical methods for potentially combining the two, but was unable to pursue them due to time and resource constraints. I am well aware that Odin and the mysterious observer in the moon are both familiar with my existence. I have noticed Uatu attempting to approach the fortress, but I am always aware of his presence. Being a being of cosmic energy, he is not very subtle. If he attempts anything, even with his oath, I will simply absorb his cosmic powers. However, at the moment, I must acquire the knowledge of crafting Uru and adamantine. I approached the majestic Uru mountain and gently tapped it, causing cracks to appear where my hand made contact. Upon examination, I quickly discerned the reason for its fragility. As I expanded the Uru, I noticed that the magic within it seemed relatively small compared to the size of this mountain. Cracks were still forming, so I decided to send some energy from my core to help it absorb and prevent further breaking. I utilized a combination of elemental magic, zone, crimson, and speed force energies to achieve this. I skillfully manipulate the falling objects with my telekinesis, carefully guiding them to the ground. After half an hour, my core is almost depleted as it finally ceases to break down, although I can still faintly hear it deteriorating, albeit at a significantly slower pace. As I carefully plan my next move, I seize the chance to create a series of service robots. Their purpose: to retrieve as many authentic adamantium ingot molds as I currently possess. Meanwhile, I tap into the immense power of my heat vision, a remarkable ability that surpasses the scorching temperatures of the sun. After receiving approximately 60 molds, I proceeded to incorporate some of the rocks of Uru into them and initiate the melting process. It came to my attention that certain circuitry within a few of my robots started to experience overheating as a result of my utilization of heat vision. I efficiently made them disappear, swiftly filling numerous molds and promptly freezing them using a combination of the McLuhan rings and my concentrated freeze breath on a specific spot on the ingots. I efficiently convert the Uru into ingots, resulting in a satisfyingly organized pile. I was curious about the sudden decrease in weight, but I speculated that the infusion of magic might have contributed to its lighter feel. To be honest, I am inclined to delve into the process of Uru production. If it is indeed crafted from a neutron core, it should theoretically have catastrophic consequences for our world. Clearly, there is something amiss that requires further investigation. The Uru reserves have a unique color, with a silverish blue hue. Interestingly, there seems to be a faint crimson miasma surrounding it, accompanied by yellow bolts of electricity. However, I can observe that these effects are gradually fading away, leaving behind the ingots. It is consuming it eagerly. I need to make a decision soon in order to efficiently allocate resources for upgrading my equipment. The longer I delay, the more challenging it will become to forge the necessary items. I would like to inquire about the process of examining adamantine and its proper mixing techniques. I am concerned about the time it may take to uncover the secret behind proto-adamantium, especially considering the growing number of unsuccessful attempts. In order to save space, I have been reducing the size of these failures. I plan to combine Zenith and Zeus Spear and incorporate Uru into it. If possible, I will enhance its capabilities by inscribing numerous runes and enchantments. I obtained these from Hephaestus' journal, as he had the opportunity to study on Asgard for a while after assisting Thor in defeating the symbiote dragon. Thor was in a dire state, and Hephaestus aided in his recovery using nectar. As a consequence, Zeus banished Hephaestus from Olympus for 300 years. He was given the opportunity to remain until his designated period ended, during which he gained valuable knowledge and experience. I knew exactly what it was, even when others mistook it for a mere dragon. However, I have a question regarding the color of Uru. If the normal color of Uru is silverish blue, then why is Gungnir golden? Could it be a variant of Uru? 4 days later, the story continues. Naruto's perspective. I am diligently working with the top quality tools Hephaestus left at his forge, expressing dissatisfaction with the Uru that I am currently using. I successfully melted down Zenith and Zeus's spear, a challenging task that required great effort. Now, I am carefully adding the melted metal into the molten Uru, infusing it with my essence to create a powerful bond between us. Given the influence of both the spear and Zenith on me, I am hopeful that my limited control over my form of adaptation extends to the metal as well. I simply need to ensure that it reaches its initial form and, with any luck, it will retain its remarkable shape-shifting capabilities. After diligently working for an hour, I finally completed the task of placing the molten adamantine. However, as I examined my work, I couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed that it didn't have the desired golden appearance. I discovered the explanation behind Gungnir's golden appearance. Odin's grandfather Buri had the first dwarves of Nidavellir created for him with the intention of uniting the rest of the Asgardians, albeit in a harsh manner. The powers of the Asgardian race are suppressed by Gungnir, resulting in a significant decrease in the number of gods, compared to the past when they were much more formidable. Many of them were just as powerful as Mark, if not more so. While they may not have had the ability to fly or move as quickly, their strength was certainly formidable. And let's not forget about their incredible potential for magic. They either submitted to Buri or met their demise, with many opting for the latter fate, ultimately transforming into the first Draugr. Nevertheless, when Thor came into existence, much of the restrictions on Gungnir's power had been removed. It is unclear how much power Gungnir truly possesses, and it seems that even Odin himself may not fully comprehend its true potential. My findings at Kamar Taj suggest that Odin primarily utilizes Gungnir in conjunction with his Odin Force. The Odin Force is a pocket dimension filled with magic that has been passed down from Buri to Bor and eventually Odin. However, it was Odin who truly made it his own when he imbibed from the well of Mimir. He utilizes the formidable Odin Force to energize his runes, ensuring that he does not rely on external dimensions for power. However, there is one significant side effect to consider: the Odin Sleep. The Odin Sleep serves as a method to replenish the depleted reserves, but it exacts a tremendous mental toll on him, necessitating a period of rest. Interestingly, even if the Odin Force is not completely drained, he may still require sleep due to the overwhelming strain it can impose. Additionally, As he ages, he requires it with increasing frequency until his passing. I carefully fold the metal once more, feeling the connection returning as I guide the Uru into it. Bluish flames flicker to life, but I channel them into the metal, ensuring that this process is executed with precision. I resume working on the metal, as it still needs further refinement to become a proper longsword. One observation I made is that the Uru material lacks the flexibility to transform into the desired shape, which hinders its compatibility with adamantine. I hope I can at least modify it into a dagger or a greatsword to match the design I have in mind for a long sword. I diligently persist in hammering the metal, repeatedly folding it despite the potential redundancy. This repetitive process imbues it with a newfound strength, compelling me to continue for several more hours. I have already discovered the deceased celestial being on Earth, and I have extensive plans for it. I attempted to establish a connection with the fortress. Truthfully, upon discovering its potential connection, my mind started buzzing with ideas for the deceased celestial's physical form. I was quite disappointed to learn that when a celestial dies, all the information it gained is lost along with its death. The fortress is diligently analyzing every bit of available data, but unfortunately, this revelation remains unchanged. Even though the fortress is connected to it, I hope to gain access to its celestial powers and harness its cosmic flames. My ultimate goal is to replicate the enchantments on Excalibur, specifically the one that grants the ability to defeat any opponent. After a few hours of dedicated work, I carefully hammer away at the metal, utilizing my impressive speed. To maintain the ideal temperature, I skillfully summon flames. With precision, I create a portal to the progenitor, hoping to harness its powerful flames for my enchantments. Naruto's perspective, I enter the body of the progenitor and notice its impressive size. Impressively large, capable of using the Empire State Building as a toothpick. However, my main focus is on the fiery elements that are emerging from the central region where a heart is traditionally found. I ascend towards it, carefully gripping the orange blade with a pair of tongs due to its intense heat. I then place it onto a platform crafted from vibranium, which I had meticulously prepared to complete the construction of my weapon. I notice a significant amount of vapor emanating from the heated blade due to the heat. I made sure to have all the necessary tools prepared for the final part. With a skilled touch, I delicately unveil the sheet concealing the mesmerizing blue flame. There is an immense amount of power present, I remarked, sensing the sheer force emanating from the flames. I placed the blade in the flames, skillfully etching powerful runes into its surface. The intense heat of the flames imbued the blade with an enhanced energy, amplifying the potency of the runes. After completing the carving process, I skillfully channeled the intense flames into the object using the Uru technique. Excalibur was crafted using ordinary materials found on Earth. I assure you, my weapon will surpass all expectations. I ensured that it is securely attached to me, and even if someone somehow attempts to lift it, it will simply pass through me without causing any harm. After completing the task, I carefully removed the blade and employed my freezing breath to quickly cool it down. The final result exuded a strong sense of professionalism, even to my own perception. I could sense the blade resonating with immense power, and I crafted a unique enchantment utilizing the properties of Uru and the art of soul binding. I possess the unique ability to convert solar energy into the necessary energy to fuel my exceptional range of powers as a kryptonian. Nevertheless, I have the ability to absorb various forms of energy, but it is necessary for my adaptation process to enable me to effectively harness and utilize these energies. Given the strong connection between this new weapon and my soul, I have the ability to store it within myself. This is the ideal choice for me, as traveling to other multiverses requires a significant level of personal adaptation. During my time in Mark's multiverse Zenith, I observed a significant weakening of the spear that was once owned by Zeus. Given my experience in this field, I have high expectations for the longevity of this new weapon's power once it has fully adapted. Uru naturally absorbs surrounding energies to enhance its own strength, as it inherits qualities from its creator. With my exceptional capacity to harness various forms of energy and utilize them to enhance my own abilities, I am able to continuously grow stronger. This unique ability extends beyond just magic, as any type of energy I absorb becomes permanently mine, rendering it impervious to theft. Consequently, this makes me an incredibly formidable force, possessing the most potent weapon in existence. During my exploration, I came across a significant vulnerability that I had failed to consider: my life force. I need to develop effective strategies to safeguard it from theft. Given the nature of my kryptonian powers, Absorbing energy not only restores me but also enhances my life force. As a result, I find myself becoming a target for those seeking to prolong their own lives. Based on my own calculations from a few days ago, I have a substantial amount of life force within me, which seems to be growing steadily every day. I carefully lower my new blade, taking out some high-quality wrappings made from a unique blend of advanced materials. With precision, I wrap the handle, seamlessly connecting the two components. To my relief, the combination proves to be successful. I skillfully maneuver the blade, effortlessly slicing through the air and effortlessly cutting through the vibranium platform without making contact. Upon examining the blade, I observed its silvery blue hue, occasionally shifting to a golden shade. As I closely inspected it, I discerned the presence of adamantine within. I utilize a highly refined energy source and the blade emits a vibrant glow, captivating to the eye. Then, I tap into a remarkable force, causing brilliant arcs of lightning to manifest briefly before being absorbed by the blade. I need to understand its capabilities now, I said with enthusiasm, examining my new sword. At last, I experiment with harnessing energy from the Phantom Zone, observing as ethereal wisps of energy are released by my sword. I utilize the enchantment to additionally enable me to strike at the soul, and when combined with the All-Kill enchantment rune from Excalibur, this weapon is arguably the most formidable non-conceptual weapon currently known. I also incorporated elements inspired by Shazam and Mjolnir, granting someone the abilities of a weakened Zeus and Poseidon. While the significance of Poseidon's powers may not be immediately apparent, there may come a time when someone I trust, like Jean, could be in danger and I wouldn't mind her utilizing those abilities. While they may not possess the same level of power as Captain Marvel, Shazam, I can enhance their abilities with Crimson Energy and the Speed Force. However, I am still undecided on whether to proceed with this approach. I survey the lifeless form of the Celestial, contemplating the unique nature of ego in comparison to its kind. From what I can gather, there doesn't appear to be any DNA present in them. However, I will investigate further at a later time. For now, it's important to take some time to rest and focus on training. Fast forward 5 days. I visit Island M to check on Eric, Raven, and the mutants affected by Charles, ensuring everything is in order. Right away, I sensed 4 individuals attempting to infiltrate my thoughts. Relax, I am not a threat. I have assisted in saving many individuals here, I communicated silently, sensing their departure from my thoughts. I flew over and observed the city, which appears to be quite stunning. Despite its rustic appearance, the village boasts impressive technological advancements. Some houses are even built in trees, and I couldn't help but notice a massive building tucked away in one corner. I provided Eric with highly advanced medical technology that surpassed anything available on Earth. This ensured that diseases were not a concern, as I took great care in attending to their health. I have taken proactive measures to ensure that I am well prepared for any potential Marvel Zombies event that may occur in this universe. I pause briefly and reflect on all of my well-thought-out backup strategies. I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment as I brainstormed numerous strategies. I shake my head and make my way towards the conversation where Eric is speaking. After a few moments, I spot him engaged in a discussion with Juggernaut, Kane Marco. I politely request entry and they graciously allow me inside. "Hello, I'm here to check on the progress and see how things are going," I stated preemptively, anticipating any questions about my presence. Eric appears more at ease, although he seems a bit fatigued from managing such a large group of individuals. Kane appears noticeably smaller, which is to be expected considering his training under Sidorak. This explains his new appearance, which suits him well. I can still detect the presence of the crimson energy emanating from him, which admittedly makes me slightly envious of his progress. It's not surprising that he's becoming even stronger. The versatility of crimson energy allows for a wide range of applications, which I'm currently exploring myself. I am seeking to infuse my spells with a sense of power and intensity. Imagine sending a beam of energy, starting off as small as a hand, but when infused with crimson energy, it grows to the size of a car. We are doing quite well. Some of the individuals here are utilizing their abilities to assist the community on the island. Although we have encountered attacks from certain organizations, Eric stated, his demeanor shifting as I realized he had been more at ease before my arrival. Trask has enlisted individuals and Hydra has infiltrated our ranks, but we successfully rescued them before any harm could befall them. However, there are some among us who harbor a desire to retaliate against humanity, and I find myself at a loss for how to handle this situation, he concluded with a heavy sigh. I paused for a second and realized that we had three possibilities. Option 1. We compel everyone to coexist and have children with one another until there are no more normal people. Option 2. We attempt to talk things out quietly with humans and convince them to accept mutants. Option 3. We eliminate people. The issue with option 1 is that enmity for mutants will persist since they do not have to like each other to collaborate. The issue with option 2 is that humanity's jealousy of mutants' power would make it almost hard to cope with, although it is realistic. The issue with option 3 is that it would result in a massive power struggle since many people will want to conquer or govern others, and mankind will most likely attempt to utilize nuclear weapons, which can be made worthless in the appropriate scenario. I sigh and tell him about the three alternatives while Kane listens in. After that, they appear like they were thinking about it, but I let them know that I favor option 2. Choosing option 1 will only encourage parents to convince their children to oppose them. Choice 3 is the simplest choice owing to how powerful some of them are, and I have no doubt that other pantheons will not intervene since some of them will become more weaker than before, and they may even disclose themselves in order to strengthen themselves. Then I recall Charles's cerebro and how he utilized it to boost his telepathy even further. I shake my head, realizing that even if that worked, I'd have to constantly manipulate them, and even then, I'd need something like the Mind Stone to make it work on this many people because implanting fake emotions and suggestions in people's minds will be noticed by some, and they have a way to stop it by wearing a helmet like Eric's and becoming semi-immune to it. I also recall about the other person I went to visit. "Hey, Eric, where is Raven?" I inquire as he stares at me with a small smile. Time jump 2 days later. Naruto POV. I recalled the world engine and its capacity to adapt a planet's surface to suit the creatures that inhabit it. However, I have a better idea. Perhaps with some of the Infinity Stones, I can change the Phantom Zone sufficiently to create a planet for them to dwell in. The sorcerers of Kamar Taj can already construct pocket realities with enough life to support basic supplies. Since the Phantom Zone can adapt like me, I'm aiming to make it capable of supporting life, but I'll need the Infinity Stones. However, we shall resume our efforts after I return from assisting Alan and Mark in dealing with his father and the Viltrum Empire. I'm going with Mark exclusively, while Jean and Hera remain in the stronghold and I go assist them out. Something is bugging me. Where is Logan? But my thoughts go as I enter my room as Jean is resting nude on the bed and Hera is next to her naked as well. They both smile at me with desire in their eyes, but Hera appears a little hesitant. "I'll worry about him later," I thought as I removed my clothing and jumped into the bed. Back in the invincible multiverse Zod POV. Finally, I am near enough to feel the rays of their sun energizing me even more, and I can see some of the Viltrumite approaching the ship I am aboard. I instantly burst through the ship and battle around 6 of them. When I get off of the ship, the sun's beams strengthen me as I smiled. When we meet, I pull one of their heads off with some effort while the other watches in horror as one of their colleagues dies in front of them. I use my heat vision on them as they fly backward after being hit, and I follow after them as I rip one of them apart, revealing his entrails, as I see more of them arrive to assist them, led by one with white hair and a scar over his right eye, as they glare at me vehemently before an enraged voice speaks in my mind as I smirk and my eyes shine. "You dare attack the Viltrum Empire?" yelled one of them, but I didn't care who said it since I was going to kill them anyhow. As we met, I could feel his strikes hurting me as the other approached me, but I kept smiling as I led them closer to their son, which strengthened me. I felt one of them finally grab me from the back as I let him as he forces my arms to my sides and finally they manage to hit me, but their hits go from causing bruising to light taps on me as the one with white breaks his right arm and I free myself and grab him and finish ripping his arm off and he begins to suffocate, which I help along by grabbing his throat and squeezing. His face turns purple from trying to hold his breath, and he tries to free himself from my grasp, but then I notice someone wearing red, and I immediately crush the throat of the one in my hand, grab the one closest to me, punch through his stomach, grab his spine, rip it out, and use it to hit the other one, and then I use my heat vision to cut his head off. Finally, the one wearing red is Thrag, who I'm going to presume based on descriptions from the ship that brought me here. He attempts to crash into me, but I just strike him in the head, which surprised me since I expected to kill him in one blow. But I see him bleeding from his nose and feel the sun's rays strengthening me more than ever. "Soon, I'm going to murder you, Kal-El," I thought with hatred for Jor-El's kid. "But before that, I'm going to destroy your lovely Earth." I prepare to battle Thrag since he seems to be more talented and strong than the others, but then a notion occurs to me. I fly over to him and grab him by the face as I approach their world. In a matter of moments, I arrive on their planet and use Thrag to smash into the ground with heavy resistance because they had multiple defenses in place to prevent what I am about to do, and we soon reach the core as I unleash my heat vision while moving to the other side of the planet as it explodes, and I look at Thrag, who is in horror at seeing his world destroyed. Using my heat vision, I make it pass past his eyes and into his brain. Time skip 2 weeks later. Naruto's POV. I am now at the stronghold with Mark, Jean, and Hera, as Mark and I are preparing to return to assist fight Viltrum. Jean and Hera, on the other hand, were not accompanying us since doing so would significantly reduce their abilities, but I vowed to take them with me into space inside this universe. They were now wishing me luck, but they quickly crawled away as we fought like beasts last night. Mark, are you ready to go back? I inquired about his rapid transformation. He is dressed in the costume I designed for him, which is constructed of vibranium and has enchantments that increase its strength and durability. His suit appears similar to his former one, with the exception of the colors, which I modified from blue to red and yellow to a dark purple. He liked the outfit I built for him and begged me not to add any strength enchantments to it, yet I did so to give him an advantage. I went to see Aurora and Raven, Mystique, who are still healing. Raven is still dealing with those troubles, but I told her that one day I would find a method to get rid of what Charles had done to her. Aurora is teaching on the island, while Logan is looking for Romulus. I asked Logan if he needed any assistance locating him. He refused to say he had to do it alone, but he did thank me, and I gave him a watch that made a signal at a frequency I could hear in case he needed assistance. Jean and Aurora have made contact and are getting to know each other as friends. Hera sometimes joins her, but she is largely assisting Raven with her troubles, and they have become friends as a result of their lengthy lives. As ready as I'll ever be, though I am still weaker than you, Mark said. I know, and when I told you about magic and you asked to learn, we discovered that you have no talent for it at all, I remarked, noting that when he attempted to link to a realm including mine, he couldn't even use a sling ring, and no sparks appeared. I know, but you said that maybe one day I can learn magic from another world, he remarked with a wink. Mark and I became friends, and I even introduced him to Peter. We all got along. Mark is not the brightest, but he compensates by working hard. Even with his abilities, he is not slacking at all. With his speed, I attempted to teach him how to phase through a wall, but he couldn't. Instead, he broke through it, but he tried. After a few more tries, I told him to stop and wait until he was faster. He complained about it since it would be nice to be able to do that, but I urged him to practice whenever he had time because I had also taught him to regulate his strength and how to use it in other ways. Are you sure you want to help me? He questioned, staring at me uneasily. Mark, I am going to assist you, and please keep in mind that I am not doing this only for your benefit. If your father is any indication, and what he said about the Viltrumite Empire, there might be others stronger than him, and in all honesty, hearing how he talked about it, I am not leaving a universe where they just go to conquer, and I am going to use them as training dummies, I finished saying as he looked at me with a, "Are you serious?" look. Let's get going, even if we might be there moments after we left, I remarked, scooping up my new weapon, which I haven't named yet. I kissed Jean. Take care, whispered Jean, staring at me with worry in her eyes and clearly apprehensive. I will, I said. I walked up to Hera and kissed her. During the last 2 days, we've gotten to know one another better. You better come back to us, she whispered, laying her forehead on mine. I promise I will, I responded, and then I walked over where Mark was waiting with his belongings packed in a suitcase. Ready? I asked Mark as I opened a gateway. Ready, he remarked as we stepped through, and fortunately I carried a fortress crystal with me this time. After what seemed like an hour, I sensed we were approaching his universe, and we arrived only a few days before Alan ordered us to meet him because I wanted to build up a castle and see if I could somehow connect it to the one in the Marvel multiverse. I told him what time we arrived, and he thanked me before going to check on his mother, who he had been anxious about. I went with him since he was going to let me stay at his place in the interim. As Mark and I entered his home, we saw that it was vacant and that his mother was still working at her job. Mark, do you want to go flying? I was stopped by Alan yelling for Mark and I. Mark, Alan is looking for us and he sounds like he is panicking, he remarked to me. Okay, I am going to get ready, he replied, running to his room as I put on my suit and waited for him, which only took a few seconds as we both flew over to where Alan was waiting for us. As we approached, he seemed afraid of something. Alan, what happened? I inquired in a serious tone, knowing that if anything made him uneasy, something significant had occurred. It's the Viltrumites' homeworld, He stopped himself short as I saw he was fatigued. Calm down and then tell us what happened, Mark responded. Viltrum has been destroyed, he said, and everyone who has tried to check up on that area has disappeared, and the coalition of planets doesn't know what to do since some other group managed to do something most planets in the universe only dream of doing. He concluded as both Mark and I just looked at him, and he explained all he knew. Time skip 1 week later in the invincible multiverse. Naruto's POV. Are you sure they are the only survivors? I questioned a doctor aboard a spacecraft near the old Viltrumite homeworld while looking through the Viltrumites' DNA structure. We believe so. We discovered these 6 individuals in a critical condition, but their determination is truly commendable. Even in such dire circumstances, they managed to hold on, stated the doctor, while I nodded and approached Mark, who was observing the devastated planet. How are you feeling? I asked him quietly. I don't know. When my dad informed us about them, I was filled with a sense of horror and fear. I'm appalled by their actions, he said, correcting himself at the end. Feeling uncertain about my dad's past actions and his expectations for me, given the current state of the world, has left me feeling quite unsettled. He appeared confused, and I can relate to his confusion. As I entered the Marvel multiverse, I couldn't help but anticipate encountering something like this, especially considering my future travels to other multiverses. However, being in this place has given me a whole new level of understanding. I pondered, gazing down at my hands. I am now a being of immense potential, capable of unleashing destruction on a massive scale. The extent of my power is truly awe-inspiring, considering the various sources of energy and abilities at my disposal. It is a humbling realization to comprehend the magnitude of what I am capable of. I understand the desire to enhance my capabilities, but I wonder if it stems from a thirst for power or a fear of the challenges that lie ahead. In my previous existence, I endured ridicule and loneliness. When Alan abruptly entered the room. Hey everyone, we've obtained some recordings from a ship that we discovered. It could potentially provide us with valuable information about the culprit, he informed, prompting us to follow him. Shortly after, we find ourselves in the hangar, where a damaged ship awaits our attention. A sizable holographic screen hovers in the air, ready to display its contents. As the screen flickers to life, a wave of unease washes over me as I realize the identity of the person appearing before me. Zod, but not just any Zod. Completing the recording and realizing that this Zod wouldn't have initiated a confrontation without a valid motive, a dreadful idea crosses my mind. It's clear that he had a purpose for coming here, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to take on all of them at once. Even if he had the ability to destroy their planet, it would have required a significant amount of power. It was evident from his frequent use of heat vision. My eyes snapped open in a state of panic. What color is the sun? I urgently questioned Alan while shaking him. I don't know, just look through one of the screens, he managed to say before I quickly went over to one and turned it on, completely disregarding the fact that they had cameras outside the ship and how incredibly high definition the footage appeared. I am concerned to discover that it is blue, although I haven't had the opportunity to experience it yet. It seems that Zod has been exposed to its energies for much longer than I will have the chance to. Alan, I'm ready to make a move and target their sun, I informed him, fully focused on the upcoming battle. But why? He inquired, expressing his confusion. I am aware of the individual responsible for the destruction of Viltrum and their current whereabouts. I possess the necessary strength to confront them, I confidently stated, harboring the hope that I am indeed capable of doing so. If you require assistance, please allow me to assist you by getting in touch, I interrupted him. No, they will only be a hindrance. Besides, I highly doubt any of them possess the skills to combat someone in a star, I informed him, as the longer Zod remains inside, the wider the divide between us will become. Okay, he responded after a brief period of looking directly at me. But it is imperative that you handle him with caution, considering the harm he inflicted upon the Viltrumites. His presence poses a significant threat and should not be underestimated, he stated. Understood, I replied as he provided directions to the ship's exit, mindful of avoiding any damage. After a short while, I find myself at the exit with Alan, who is supporting Mark as he insists on joining me in battling Zod. I soar through the open door, propelled towards the radiant blue sun. It feels like I just consumed an excessive amount of coffee in an instant, but this sensation continues to persist as my cells absorb its energy. I can only imagine what it would be like to be inside a cell, as I can sense my abilities growing even more potent than ever. I have no time to waste. The longer I delay, the greater the danger to this universe. I must take action immediately. I found myself captivated by the allure of soaring towards the blue star, basking in its radiant energy that invigorated me like never before. Naruto flew into the blue star, which makes him stronger. He searched for Zod but couldn't locate him inside. He strolled about for a time, feeling his abilities grow stronger with each passing second. If this is how much power he gained in only a few seconds, he will have to rely on everything if he is to defeat him, he reasoned before something or someone slammed into him. Naruto hit Zod, but he couldn't get him to move, and Zod punched him out of the sun, but he caught himself. Naruto didn't even see him move. As he approaches him, his adaptation working to make him capable of spotting him but unable to move at that pace yet. Naruto manages to phase through with some difficulty since it makes him feel a little ill, but he grabs his leg and pulls him towards himself and punches Zod in the chest with his entire physical power, barely making him flinch, before Zod grabs his head and headbutts him, which hurts a lot. Naruto begins to use Crimson Energy and Speed Force, which he hoped would allow him to fight him, when he notices the symbol on his chest and becomes enraged as his eyes light up red, but soon turn blue, and he sends a blast at him, which he avoids with difficulty, but he is beginning to adapt to his attacks, as Naruto can tell by the smirk on his face. Naruto's adaptation, magic, and the energy from the blue sun would aid him even more, but he must be cautious. He reflected as he saw him gradually lose his smirk as he continued to use his heat vision, but he would not run out of solar energy very soon. Naruto took out his sword, hoping that he would not be immune to magic. Zod was amused when he pulled a sword, but Naruto took advantage of his amusement and tried to stab him, but he stops the blade with his hands as the metal digs into them as he realizes he underestimated his sword and tries to break it as he punches the blade, but it stops his fist, and he took the opportunity to stab him, but he manages to dodge as lightning surges around me, and the crimson energy helps close the strength gap, and the blue sun also helps. No time like the present, Naruto thought as he began to vibrate in an effort to accelerate his metabolism so that his body could absorb more energy from the blue sun, which appears to work as it feels as if he received multiple adrenaline shots as Zod punches him in the face, but Naruto does not even move as the sun begins to move as tendrils of energy enter me. But he stops after a few moments because Naruto does not want Zod to absorb any more solar energy. Naruto threw his blade aside and raced at Zod, finally injuring him as he flew backward, but he soon steadied himself as he started to glow around as a blast of sun energy sent his back as he seemed to be able to control it. He trained in the sun, didn't he? Naruto thought with displeasure as he is a little apprehensive of him now, but it should be assumed that this Zod isn't the one from the comics since he is a real live person. Zod raced at him and punched Naruto in the head as they fought back and forth. He required both the Crimson and Speed Force energies to keep up with him, but his adaptability is allowing him to become stronger during the fight. Zod glances at Naruto with recognition in his eyes. Naruto suspected that he knew his fighting technique. He manages to strike him in the stomach, followed by a punch to the back of his head, and as he moves, he follows him and begins to beat him in the back, attempting to shatter his spine as soon as he does serious harm to him because to his adaptation. He turns around and hits him in the face as his head rotates, then grabs it and attempts to tear it off him, inserting his fingers into his eyes in an effort to blind him. He conceals his sorrow while his body glows, and Naruto knows what he is intending. He is going to utilize the super flare, he thought. Zod is essentially providing him free energy for him to absorb. The bad thing is that he couldn't absorb the energy inside someone's body yet. He starts to shine brighter as he closes his eyes, but we can see through them as an explosion engulfs us both. Naruto's paw of ice strikes Zod in the face, he punches me in the chest, and we both fly away when he activates his super flare. My adaptation makes me capable of battling him, but he takes a lot of sun energy, and I'm not sure how many times he'll unleash his super flare. We fly at one another, and our fists smash. I grasp his left arm and attempt to burn through it as it burns through his arm, but he strikes me in the face again as I fly away while his arm heals. I jump at him without stopping, launching a torrent of blows around his body, and although he starts to spurt forth blood as if I am about to kill him, I see him shining again, which just pushes me farther away. I let him approach me, but my adaptation eventually allows me to attack him. I cease utilizing Speed Force and Crimson Energy since I want my body to adjust without them, even if it takes some time, with Zod gaining an edge for a few minutes while I dodge and block any strikes while counterattack. He manages to injure me enough to leave some bruising, which rapidly fades. However, the more I damage Zod, the slower he recovers. I attacked him and started to move him away from the star, knowing that the longer we remain near to it, the longer the war will last. I take him a long way away, but he eventually realizes why I took him so far as he begins to glow again and use his super flare again, despite the fact that he doesn't seem to realize that is what I want him to do, as he explodes again while I hold him tight, and he explodes 3 more times before I am forced to let go of him. My body adapts quickly as I grab Zod again after a few moments of him attempting to return to the blue star, but I stop him and begin beating on him. After numerous super flares, he is much weaker now as I continue beating on him as his arms and legs flail around as he tries to punch me again. I simply grab his arm and hit his elbow, breaking it as he lets out a silent scream. I hold his head and push him to open his eyes while using my heat vision, attempting to fry his brain but countering with his own. But I can tell he's becoming fatigued as he strives unsuccessfully to break free from my clutches. As I go through his memories, I use my telepathy to inflict anguish on him, and something makes me reconsider killing him. Maybe I can compel him to serve me, I thought while staring at the recollection that was really very suppressed in his mind. I saw Brainiac and Doomsday in his memory. I soon knocked him out by punching him on the jaw and dislocating it. Elsewhere, third-person perspective. This planet has insufficient resources for exact replication of all ship functions. Locating alternatives, says a deep mechanical voice as a scanner looks through space, and it quickly notices a planet rich in resources as a huge ship comes from the ground, destroying most of the planet it was on as it had been completely stripped of any resources, leaving behind a massive amount of dirt and stone as even the core had been taken to make the huge ship the size of a. It quickly moved through space to the planet the being had seen, and further scans revealed that the planet is home to a sentient species. Several ships begin to approach the planet-sized ship and attack it, but their efforts are futile because the ship's energy barrier prevents any of their attacks from passing through. Within seconds, the world was conquered. The name of this species is Flaxans, said the same mechanical voice but with a hint of enthusiasm as it discovered the location of Earth and some of the technologies at their disposal. Remembering the heroes of the Earth fighting against him and suddenly sent to another location where he fought a huge group of heroes with a Superman with a gray arm and a Batman with a black lantern ring, and remembering how Dr. Fate managed to banish him from the multiverse moments before. I require more information, remarked Brainiac as soon as he acquired a city and started his collection again, stripping the Flaxans world of everything of worth to him. Time jump 2 days later. Naruto's POV. I'm now aboard a ship making sure Zod or the Viltrumites don't do anything, and Zod is causing me the most problems since I'm keeping him sleeping, but I have to cast the same spell every hour, which I'm getting accustomed to. I began to recall my fight with Zod and how I began to absorb the sun at an incredible rate. I know that I can manipulate any energy after I absorb it, which allows me to use it more efficiently, but it does appear to have some limitations that are more annoying than anything else because, even though I can manipulate any energy, I still need to practice with it. If I receive the Power Stone and start using it to produce energy blasts or more sophisticated creations, I need to imagine how it will appear and how much energy it will have, otherwise it will just explode. All in all, more things to practice. I recall the blue sun and my plan to transfer it to the Phantom Zone. It would need a lot of energy if I weren't a Kryptonian with Hack's talents, but I am certain I can accomplish it. Being near another sun, it is simple to notice the difference as to why Earth's sun is more comforting than any other. We stopped by a station to refill our supplies the day before, and it was near a yellow sun, so the contrast was obvious. Earth's sun has a magical property to it that I was unaware of until then, which shouldn't come as a surprise given how many sun gods exist on Earth, and although other planets do have sun gods, they only have 3 in the Marvel cosmos. Hey, you coming? We are nearly at HQ, said Alan as we came close to their headquarters because the commander named Thaddeus wanted to meet with me and find out who I am and who Zod was. This is going to be a hassle, I thought while preparing to give them the identical explanation that I gave Mark and Alan. Speaking of Mark, he met a Viltrumite named Lucan, and although he seems to be cruel, he warmed up to Mark, but not to the others. Anissa attempted to murder Mark, Zod, and myself. But I convinced her to calm down, and the others more or less followed her as a leader since she defeated Craig, which reminds me of a serial name from Earth. I followed Alan as we exited the ship, and in all honesty, it wasn't that remarkable, but I did spot armaments that they must have been improving or altering to combat the Viltrumite Empire. After, News of the destruction of Viltrum, many planets under them began to rebel, although not really a rebellion since the Viltrumites left them to their own devices, but we assumed that they went to Viltrum to see if it was true or not, and I was scared of what, or rather who destroyed it, but you managed to beat him and you don't seem like you were a bad guy, said Alan as he spoke to me about what he was afraid of. Even though we couldn't actually see your fight, the amount of strength and speed that you showed is clearly on another level. I am sorry if I am babbling, it's just that. You are afraid that I am like the Viltrumites or worse than them, and seeing my power scared you. I stopped him while thinking about it. I am strong, and I am trying to keep myself from becoming arrogant since I know that even gods may perish as a result. Knowing that one day I will be able to destroy multiverses effortlessly scares me because I have no clue what degree of strength I can achieve. Even when I had sex with Jean and Hera, I held back, and we did it for hours, and I was still eager to continue. Superboy Prime is an excellent example of a Kryptonian who must reach the low to mid-tier multiversal level since he can destroy worlds with a single punch and only utilizes his power. I'm not sure whether he's ever come into touch with a blue sun, but it would undoubtedly boost his multiverse power. I am not like them, Alan. I respect all life, believe it or not. I know what it is like to be weak and bound, I said him as we came to a halt. I still recall wanting to be free to live my own life and battle those who would attempt to control me. Naruto's POV. I am presently standing in a chamber, putting Zod and the remaining Viltrumites on trial since I am here to ensure they do not do anything with Mark and Alan by my side. My conversation with Thetis went well, all things considered, since he was stuttering in fright the whole time when I told him what I knew about Zod, leaving out the essential information, but when I assured him that I had nothing against him or the coalition of worlds. He was terrified when Alan verified that Zod had destroyed Viltrum, and I had fought Zod. I took a risk and peered into his head. He was fearful of the Viltrumites dominating the cosmos, but when he learned about Zod and me, he became worried that we would destroy the universe. I see him talking about their penalties, and he mentions one of them. The Viltrumite, Anissa, shall be the Kryptonian Vanel prisoner to do with as he wishes. He went on as I read his thoughts and tried not to fry his ass. I turned to look at the female Viltrumite and saw that she was simply staring at the ground, and I could see she was upset but kept it within since she knew I could beat her if she tried anything. They had dealt with Zod fast, and in secret, they had just informed the higher-ups that he was being tried while still unconscious. I have plans for Zod, and I am keeping him in stasis. It took a few hours for everything to complete, but when it did, finally freedom, yelled Mark as subtly as an elephant in a glasshouse, making me sigh, and Alan and Anissa stare at him as if he were an idiot, which he is. Mark, can you be a little more subtle? I told him. We were sitting there for 14 hours, he was absolutely exhausted psychologically and emotionally, so this is the best he can be, I think. Mark, I know you are tired about everything, but where do you get the energy to act like that? I questioned inquisitively. It's just everything they did, and to be honest, I don't consider myself one of them because I am also part human, and I quite like it that way, you know, he added, which made me reflect on myself, and in all honesty, I couldn't care less about my former human body. What's so fantastic about being human? Speaking from experience, when I arrived in the Marvel multiverse and before those first rays of sunlight were absorbed by me, I felt like my head cleared up and my emotions settled in. I can still be furious, but not savagely angry. When I met Jean, I realized that most people are not destined to have power. When I think of every human superhero, I remember Iron Man, Captain Marvel, version, not Captain Marvel, Shazam, Sentry, and Reed Richards. Iron Man is too arrogant to acknowledge when he is wrong, as he was during the Civil War over the superhero registration legislation. Captain Marvel's passion with preventing crimes from occurring frequently leads to him going to extreme lengths. Sentry, there is no therapist in the Marvel multiverse who is equipped to deal with that heated mess, albeit he seems to have perished quite quickly versus Null. Reed Richards, in all honesty, which of his fuck-ups to bring up since practically everything he tries to do for good ends up backfiring on him and the rest of the world, as he does with Iron Man. I won't even get started on the other 616 variants. Now, onto mankind. They desire battle, and their greed and blind hate consume them. Examples include World War I, World War II, gas chambers, the atom bomb, mustard gas, and many more. But I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't think about how Captain America and Spider-Man can help others. Don't embrace too much, Mark, I advised him as Anissa gazed at me. A few hours later, we were returning to Earth on Alan's new spacecraft, which had been given to him as a prize, while Mark moaned about it since Alan had first dibs on it and I didn't want it. I turned to peer through the walls at Zod's cell, which was covered with true adamantium shells to keep him from doing anything. I am going to my temporary room, I replied, starting to walk away. About that, Anissa is staying in your room, replied Alan, making me halt. What? I questioned him, whirling around to face him. You are the only one who can control her, remarked Mark without looking at me, but I can see a sneer on his face. Whatever, I said, sighing. When I arrived to the room and opened the door, I find her sprawled over the bed. So you are here to fuck me, she remarked simply, making me want to facepalm at her inquiry. Why does everyone assume that? I wondered. Those two morons undoubtedly told her something similar, I reasoned, thinking of vengeance. So, what are you waiting for? She replied as I turned to face her. Naruto's Pav, I am back in the Marvel multiverse, and because there has been no trace of Doomsday or Brainiac in Mark's multiverse, I am going to presume that they follow me around, and if I am correct, they should be heading over to this one, but I offered them a way to reach me via the Phantom Zone. I shake my head and glance over to where Jean and Hera are conversing with Anissa. They actually became friends after some challenges. I open a portal to the Citadel and check on the status of my spacecraft and the progenitor. I remember what I did to Zod and what I promised him if my preparations went well. Although he attempted to murder me many times, he agreed when I told him I was going to bring Krypton back, and when I spoke about the Genesis Chamber, he volunteered his own DNA to add to the mix. I had him vow fealty to me since I want to become the ruler of my own planet and will need generals. Zod was apprehensive at first, but what I offered him was too appealing to pass up. I questioned why he accepted so readily, because the truth is that he wanted to die. In his opinion, he failed Krypton and its people, and his unsuccessful efforts to assassinate Kal-El drove him to kill Zod, but now that I've informed him, he has hope of seeing Krypton again. I told him we'd wait a few years since neither of us is ready for Kryptonian superpowered offspring, and although I'll be raising them to be devoted to me, they'll need a lot of care, and we still need to find a planet to live on. After a few hours, I return to my flat. I wonder if I should make one for us since the apartment is becoming rather tiny, I thought while gazing around and felt two arms wrap around me and red hair as Jean kissed me on the face and Hera came closer and nibbled on my ear. You know you are pretty late, said Jean, whispering in my left ear. We have needs, you know, Hera said in my right ear. I spin around and kiss Jean while I create a portal underneath us to our bedroom bed. After a few seconds, I pull my lips away from Jean and kiss Hera passionately, causing her to groan. Lemon warning. You have been warned. I begin to remove my clothing, and Jean and Hera both look at me with want, Jean fingering herself and sighing quietly, Hera caressing her breasts. I move to kiss Jean as Hera takes her clothing off, and her breasts bounce as Jean and I kiss and stare at her, indicating that she is not wearing a bra. I disengage from Jean and grasp Hera, kissing her again while Jean removes her clothing. Hera starts caressing my dick while I finger her. We gasp into one another's lips, our tongues intertwined as saliva pours down. I feel Jean approaching us as we kiss, and my boner twitches as I see Jean and Hera kissing. I position myself at Hera's entrance and force myself in as they stop kissing. Hera groans loudly, and Jean swiftly kisses her deeply as I begin to thrust. This continues on for a few minutes. Hera, I am about to. Inside, always inside me. She moans, as Jean sits in her face and licks her pussy. I shoot inside of her as she spasms on the bed, and Jean bends down, grabs my dick from Hera pussy, and starts sucking my sperm out of her while stroking me. Hera walks away, catching Jean by the shoulder and forcing her to lie on her, while she grabs Jean's face and kisses her as I force myself inside her. Hera is fondling Jean's breast as I continue thrusting into her, and after a few minutes, I come inside her as well. In a few seconds, they are side by side in doggy style as I claim Hera's anal virginity, causing her to come immediately. I'm fingering Jean as she shakes her ass at me, and I slap her lightly enough not to injure her as she groans and shakes her ass even more. After a few minutes, I come in Hera and shove myself into Jean's ass as she screams loudly, Hera lying by her side. We're all sweating at this time, but largely them since I'm not even weary. We keep going for 3 days, and when we're done, I look at them, covered in cum, their tongues out, and cum gushing out of their pussy and ass. I look at myself and notice my dick still standing firm as I shake my head and use magic to ensure they are not pregnant and clean them before the 3 of us fall asleep. Lemon end. A.N. I tried my best. Naruto Pav. I wake up feeling Hera and Jean's nude bodies as sunlight streams through one of the windows, and the unexpected surge of energy awakens me. I cautiously attempt to get myself out, but my dick is within Jean, who groans quietly. I pull it out of her while groaning slightly and get out of bed. I hurriedly put on some clothing from my wardrobe, and I observed that Jean and Hera had also placed some clothes in instead of their own. I moaned. I need to build a house for us to live in, I whispered quietly to myself while thinking about it. If not for the odors and the fact that I can smell everything from here to China, New York is a decent place to live in. Making my own house may provide me with greater opportunity to prepare myself. As far as I know, celestials and creatures more powerful than them can still easily kill me. Right now, I'm working on a few stones to create a doorway to the Phantom Zone large enough to contain the blue sun of the Viltrumite homeworld. When I returned to check on the construction of my ship, I was inspired to create my own eradicator by Lois Lane from the Dark Universe and the knowledge that the fortress might empower people with kryptonian abilities for a limited time and at a high risk. The progenitor may be dead, but the quantity of power left behind says much about his might. I can see there's something wrong with its body, and the metal it's composed of is clearly degrading. I know Iron Man created the Godkiller armor Mk2, which was constructed of normal materials. I snort as I imagine my own future version of it, which is my next idea after I obtain the blue sun. I go to the stronghold to check on Zod after seeing Anissa having breakfast. Zod has been silent, and he understands that I do not trust him enough to access some, if any, of the fortress's capabilities. It is also evident that he is not a scientist, but I am allowing him to educate himself by uploading important knowledge into his brain. I walk inside my workroom and keep thinking about the home. I'll be employing magic, of course, to make it genuinely safe. The defenses will be tiny world engines capable of destroying everything that attempts to harm them. I'm also planning to make robots like Vision from the MCU version, and some of the technology in the castle is similar to what Helen Cho used to build him. I'll be integrating at least one of them with the Eradicator, but I'm not going to give him the Mind Stone. I pause for a second when I realize how long it would take to build something like that. Even if my drones make it, I will still need to be there to set the enchantments on them. I monitor the ship's development and go around the globe aiding people. I rescued a child from falling from a tree and several others from a tsunami. I also attempted to practice phasing through things of varying densities and doing emergency operations with my tiny heat vision, although I also employed my healing magic as necessary. I concluded in a little village that had been ravaged by a minor disease. When I got to Mark's multiverse by accident, I started to wonder how to travel to other worlds. However, attempting to travel on purpose is a very other story. In a few seconds, I head to the sun and remain for a few hours, observing the differences between the blue and yellow suns. It's not the same since I received far more power from the blue sun. As I return to Earth and enter the atmosphere, I hear Hera summon me for our date. Somewhere else, a day earlier, a pale, light gray-skinned lady pants while groping herself and masturbating to what she is witnessing. So hot, she breathes as she watches Naruto push into Hera, making her scream in delight and become hornier, but she can't seem to reach her release. Lady Death, come on damn it, why aren't I coming yet damn it, I shout in desperation as I watch my new favorite activity, the deadly Naruto. He made some ripples among the abstractions, yet he seemed to be untouchable to me for some reason. It irritated me when the living tribunal said that even if he died, his soul would go to some jerk named Necron rather than me. Who the fuck is Necron anyway? I mumbled while continuing massaging my clit while watching Naruto and Hera come together, which made me envious since his life energy seems to rise every instant for some reason, and if it continues to do so, I can't get any more of that delicious energy of his. I said, coming slightly at the notion of the energy he wasted while performing soul magic, which caused me to come harder than ever before. Just the thought of it makes me hornier. I groaned a bit while visualizing myself absorbing his energy. Nevertheless, I can't communicate with him. I do have an avatar that may prove useful to me, I remarked while touching myself. Maybe it's time to get in contact with that Asgardian, I muttered, seeing Naruto enter the redhead. Another dimension Victor Von Doom's Pav with a magically boosted strike. I drive my fist into the face of this hideous beast. I've been chasing these monsters ever since my contractor granted me access to his magic with a simple request and informed me about the ones attempting to manipulate me. I hit the thing again as it enters its head and exits the other side. The power he granted me access to is wonderful, However, he did indicate that he would offer me spells when I grow physically stronger on my own and practice at least some basic magic. I snort as more monsters emerge from the portal blasted open by Shuma Gorath. They may not be able to reach Earth as readily, but they can force them open with a great deal of magical energy. I prepare for this confrontation by absorbing their abilities and violently taking them to defend myself. Fortress time jump 3 weeks later. Naruto's POV. I utilize my heat vision on a damaged section of the Celestial, since I want to take the core and use the Celestial fires later. I'm starting to wonder about a few things about everything right now. I'm probably one of the most powerful people in this world as far as I know, yet I can still be killed unless I acquire some reality-altering abilities. I finish shattering the core and transport it to the castle. After placing it down, I begin to set it up and proceed to the seed that Ego left behind on Earth. One of my major concerns about becoming a Dimension Lord is that if I become one with my dimension, I would most likely lose my body, which was created by Lord Chaos, and I do not want to lose it. One of Ego's talents shown in the film is biokinesis, which allows him to create a whole new body for himself using energy. I can get that ability for myself by memorizing and replicating my genetic code, and by connecting to my dimension, I will be able to have more bodies than shadow clones. As I search around for it, it doesn't take long for me to discover it since I had a basic concept of where it was and can swiftly grab it and head to the stronghold. I start thinking about the other pantheons and wonder when they'll make their move. I've prepared as best I can for them, and I can sense Doom employing magic and absorption in a new manner. Dimensional power absorption was a highly frequent spell back in the days of Agamotto, although numerous spells were developed to counteract its effects. One of the primary reasons why so many entities want Earth is the vast number of various energies that were extracted from other realms and employed here, some of which still exist. Doom uses it to fuel another spell that builds a barrier around you. The more energy you put into it, the stronger and longer it lasts. He is not utilizing it to improve himself, but rather for defensive purposes. I turn to look at the monitor screen, which displays scans of DNA from Ego's seed and some metal from the progenitors. First and foremost, heavenly DNA is utterly ridiculous. I'm sure if folks realized how much information it held. Too fucking much. Even my customized kryptonian DNA scanned quicker than this. I use Speedforce energy to speed up myself in the display while I remember the massive quantities of data that I just received. In all honesty, it only took a few seconds, but it seemed like months since my head ached, but it eventually went away. The Celestials are not just sophisticated, they go beyond that. While reality warpers can be used, the Celestials do so much more. Reality warpers can affect reality, but Celestials, at least in my opinion, can do much more. I am certain that this is why the power scaling is so different. Celestials do not change anything unless they wish to, and even then, they believe that making is quicker than changing. I stop for a time, recognizing that they and other entities are on a far higher level than myself. Celestials have a plethora of abilities that are seldom detailed in depth and instead skirted over. I have a lot more to accomplish as I glance at the clock and realize it is almost time for my rendezvous with Jean. Naruto's POV time skip 2 months later. Lemon warning. You have been warned. Hera and I moan as she bounces on me as I grab her by the ass, and Jean is masturbating next to her while she licks Hera's neck, causing her to tighten around me as I came inside of Hera as she went backward, causing my dick to come out of her, as Jean took her place as she mounted and began to bounce on me without waiting, moaning loudly in pleasure. Oh yes, don't stop, faster please. She continued to scream in ecstasy since she is highly sensitive, and we had been having sex for more than 5 hours. I observe Hera approaching Jean and begins touching her tits as she turns her head to kiss her, as I speed up and feel my dick harden even more at the sight. In about half an hour, I got Jean and Hera next to each other, their asses directed at me, and when I shoved inside of Hera, she screamed with delight. This went on for a few more hours, and they both passed asleep with big silly smile on their faces. Lemon end. I stare at them both, and my dick is still erect. This is so irritating, I thought, but I glanced at them and used magic to clean them up, as well as to ensure that all of my sperm had died. I would want to have kids, but much later, I thought, having infants that can produce storms simply by breathing is going to be a nuisance. I placed Jean and Hera in a comfortable position before proceeding to the fortress, but not before ensuring that all of the apartment's fortifications were in good working order. As I came, I glanced at the celestial core and egg. I'll need some more time to absorb any energy from it since, even if it becomes mine, there is at least one celestial here that I know of. If null exists here, I don't want any celestials approaching my residence. I opened a portal to the citadel and obtained my runestones, which were the size of a football field apiece, but I reduced them and carried them with me. One perk of traveling to Mark's multiverse is that I can emerge anywhere I wish. I emerge a few light years distant from it, racing faster and faster toward the blue star. I arrive in a few seconds and rapidly set up the runestones, making them larger as I activate them, and the blue sun is dragged into the phantom zone. Several hours later, I'd been waiting for it to vanish into the zone for a long, but suddenly the runestones broke apart just as they ended, making me upset and cursing in my head. I just returned to the zone and returned home, bringing the sun with me, and although I could still absorb its energies inside, I was able to absorb part of them outdoors. As I left the apartment a few hours later, I saw Hera and Jean nude on our bed, frowning as if they had just ended a conversation. "Is something wrong?" I said, as they both startled upon realizing I was there. Jean attempted to begin, then sighed deeply. "What Jean is trying to say is that we are not enough for you because you didn't even sweat while we were having sex, and we believe you should." She paused for a second, trying to find how to put it. "We want you to bring more women to our relationship," Jean said. I gaze at them for a minute and reflect on what they just stated. "If I say yes, the two of you are going to be testing whoever any of us try to bring in this relationship," I said to them. "Of course we will," said Hera. "As if we would let some slut take you away from us," she said, folding her arms beneath her breasts. "And I have an idea of who can join us," Jean added with a smile on her lips. "Who?" I said, although already knowing who it was. A few minutes earlier, a fair-skinned lady attempts to get out of her prison once again, having lost count of how many times she has attempted to do so when she senses a familiar presence in her head. "Mistress, why are you speaking to me?" she murmured in a gruff voice, as if she hadn't spoken in a long time. "I'm speaking with you now to demonstrate, tell you what I'm going to do," the voice whispered excitedly, passion spilling out of it. "What is it?" Gila asks before screaming in agony as her veins seem to flash a bright orange and smoke emanates from her body. In her head, she is shown why her mistress is creating her avatar. She has images of a guy dressed in black with the S sign on his chest, which quickly transform into memories of her mistress relishing the life essence of that entity. Gila comes at the mere recollection of it, pantsing in want. As her blood boils, she takes her bottom clothing off and starts to masturbate. "Go to him and make him ours," said Lady Death, moaning beside Gila. Gila gets up and tears the cage open with a stroke of her palm, letting her fluids stream down her legs and slacks. "I will," Gila says in a crazed tone, Naruto's pav. I'm now in the phantom zone, taking energy from the blue sun within, and holy shit, my strength is increasing by leaps and bounds. Forget becoming a Saiyan if this is just a few hours of being boosted. In addition, I'm utilizing the Speed Force to boost my metabolism and speed up the process. But I'm going to leave in a few more hours since I don't want to become pure energy just yet. I begin to recall what Jean and Hera said me about finding others. They did say Anissa may join us if she wants, and Jean wants Felicia and Hera wants Natasha. When they showed me their ideas for what they wanted to do to them, we had sex again, and when I left, they were still passed out with great smile. I made no progress with the heavenly DNA, so I'm leaving the flames for later. I inspect my core and see that even when I extract all of the energy from it, it continues to replenish very rapidly as the quantity of Speed Force and Crimson Energy increases even more. One of the first multiverses I wish to visit is the Dragon Ball multiverse for a certain method. The Kaioken, I want to go there and get Ki, and I am hopeful that my adaptation will allow me to do so. In addition to Ki, I intend to go to other multiverses in search of more sources of power. But, in order to do so, I'll need to create a technology that allows me to go to other multiverses, but I'm not sure how to get there. I'm following up on some of Kamar Taj's study into the multiple realities in a multiverse and how they dispatched artifacts around the Marvel multiverse, which may take anything from a few hours to a few weeks, if not years, to travel between multiverses. This is my best choice for the time being since I do not want to be obliterated once I leave the multiverse. Returning to the Kaioken, which is a technique that aggressively enhances the user's strength when used at greater multipliers and destroys someone's body. But because to my adaptation and miraculous recuperation, I believe I can go farther than anybody before me. The issue is getting there in the first place. I feel the quantity of Speed Force and Crimson Energies and note that they are now like oceans of power apiece, but I know that if they are utilized excessively, they will deplete soon. I swing my limbs about as if I were naked, absorbing as much power as possible, and while I do, I recall the power scaling in Marvel, which I believe is worse than Dragon Ball. Sentry is a prime example of this. In one comic, he easily defeated Molecular Man Owen Reese, and the only flaw in his molecular manipulation abilities is his lack of expertise. Some argue that he may be worse than Wanda Maximoff when she declared, "No more mutants." Keep in mind that Robert Reynolds was a heroin addict before using the Golden Sentry serum. His power also increased to crazy heights, some say from 1,000 exploding suns to 1,000,000 suns bursting, making me the worst opponent for him to battle at all. I'm still keeping an eye on him since he doesn't seem to have gone near the serum just yet. I even questioned the Ancient One about him, but there is one issue I discovered. Despite his existence, the Ancient One has no knowledge who the Sentry or Void is. Blue Marvel is another character that has piqued my interest, and he does exist here. He still has his abilities, but the United States raped him in the ass with a spiked strap to compel him to quit. They killed one of his unborn children and poisoned his daughter, which I must admit is incredible that she is still alive. She receives regular injections to counteract the worst of it, but she appears to be able to live a full life as long as she takes her shots weekly. They made a concerted attempt to remove him from history, including murdering his companions in terrible ways to force him into retirement. He is still attempting to acquire a permanent treatment for his daughter from them, but they keep a close eye on him, forcing him to reside near a abandoned nuclear plant equipped with hundreds of nuclear missiles ready to be fired at him at any time. I shake my head and leave the zone, since it is almost time for school. Time jump 2 days later. Naruto's POV. "You know this is pretty boring, right?" I remarked to Jean as we were walking to the cafeteria for lunch. "I understand, but it's the experience that really matters," she replied, diligently searching through her bag. As I opened the doors, I noticed Peter diligently multitasking, eating and working on his homework on a slightly outdated laptop. I inquired about it and he informed me that he had won it in a science competition 2 years ago. As we sat down, we started discussing how our day has been so far. I couldn't help but suppress a snort as I pondered the idea of being in a star larger than Earth's sun while still attending school. After we finish our lunch, I offer my assistance to Jean with her homework. While I can complete mine quickly, she still requires a significant amount of help. I make a point of attentively listening to Hera's activities, and it's not unexpected that she is dedicating time to catching up on history. Considering her confinement in Olympus, it's understandable that she lacked any means of staying informed about events on Earth. I inquired about the course of action regarding Olympus, and after a lengthy discussion, we ultimately agreed to entrust it to Hades. This decision not only earned me some favor with him, but also necessitated his efforts in rebuilding it. One thing that struck me profoundly was the realization that individuals in this universe are not limited in their abilities. Rather, they must exercise self-restraint to navigate through life. It is worth noting that Abomination may have initially held an advantage over Hulk in their encounters. However, it is important to recognize that Hulk's strength intensifies exponentially as his anger grows. Jean, Peter, and I proceed to our next classes as we hear the bell ring. 3 hours later. "Any idea where Natasha might be?" "She wasn't here today," asked Jean as I started to survey the planet using my supervision, which greatly aids in locating individuals. To my surprise, I discovered her injured in the helicarrier's med bay. "She is injured but is making progress in the helicarrier," I informed her. As she turned to face me, she recalled some of my abilities and nodded in acknowledgement. "Should we provide medical treatment for her?" she inquires. "She is not in any significant danger, mostly dealing with scratches and bruises. However, she does have a few dislocated bones, but rest assured, she will make a full recovery," I reassured, and we continued our walk back to our apartment. "So how are you planning to address the matter concerning your life force?" she inquires within my thoughts as I let out a deep sigh. One issue that is increasingly evident is the duration of my life force after sunset. It has extended to such an extent that I can now live for billions of years. However, it is important to note that this does not qualify as true immortality, akin to that of a deity. I consider myself to be an individual with a significant lifespan, which can sometimes present challenges. Yesterday, I encountered a group of malevolent entities who claimed to be under the command of a powerful being. They proceeded to cause significant damage to one of the sacred structures that safeguards our world from interdimensional dangers. The Ancient One inquired about the possibility of transforming the fortress into a temporary one. This request comes in the aftermath of the destruction of the London Sanctum and the near loss of several relics. certain enchantments have hindered the artifacts from returning to their dimensional entity or moving in a manner reminiscent of Annabelle. I also had an unexpected encounter with Celine Giulio, who seemed to be intrigued by my presence. However, Hera swiftly intervened and forcefully propelled her into the air before she could react. Jean then skillfully guided her downwards, resulting in a significant impact that left a crater resembling a small warehouse. She emerged unharmed, without a single scratch, but she seemed noticeably cautious around those two individuals, aware of their influence. I insisted that she depart, and thankfully she complied, although not without a mischievous wink in my direction, much to the annoyance of Hera and Jean. We had an intense encounter that night, primarily initiated by them, but still, it was quite remarkable. I have decided to temporarily refrain from sunbathing in order to allow my body to naturally develop. It doesn't imply that I am not absorbing blue star radiation from the Phantom Zone, but rather at a slower pace. What are your thoughts on Hera's intentions? Jean asked, interrupting me. She mentioned her interest in pursuing hobbies, but she is still in the process of exploring them, I replied to her. Hera is older than us, but I won't mention that to her directly. I was taken aback and frustrated to learn that one of her virginities remained intact. Zeus forced himself upon Hera in order to convince her to marry him, as her primary domain is marriage. Losing her maiden status would have posed significant risks for her. All the children that she has with Zeus were conceived during times when he was under the influence and behaved inappropriately towards her, resulting in her becoming pregnant. Fortunately, this behavior ceased when Zeus inexplicably lost interest in her. Arriving at our apartment, I hear Peter let out a rather dramatic scream, reminding me of the importance of keeping a watchful eye on him to prevent any unnecessary mishaps. Jean, please quickly gather Hera and meet me at the fortress, I informed her before swiftly heading towards the source of Peter's distressing cry. We can assist you, Jean stated, but as I presented her with images of Peter's assailant, she comprehended the urgency of my request for her to depart. Upon my arrival, I noticed a man dressed in Victorian-style attire, casually enjoying his meal. However, my frustration grew when I observed Peter's missing eye. I swiftly pushed the individual, causing him to collide with a nearby structure, while simultaneously directing a curative orb towards him to restore his vision. I allow the individual to approach me while I attend to Peter's well-being. When he comes near, I swiftly seize him by the neck, observing his futile attempts to break free from my grasp. You messed with the wrong spider, Morlun, I said with determination as my eyes glow with intensity. Naruto's perspective, Morlun relentlessly pummeled me in his desperate struggle for freedom, until his hands finally shattered under the strain. I open a portal and bring Peter and Morlun to a desert to engage in a confrontation. I carefully use my telekinesis to hold Peter in place, all the while maintaining the healing spell on him. It's you, said Morlun with a smile that gave off an unsettling vibe. I forcefully detach one of his arms while he cries out in agony. May I inquire as to the reason for your search? I confronted him, furious about his actions towards Peter. He spits in my face as my eyes ignite with anger and my focused gaze burns through his left leg. Fine, if you won't communicate, I will delve into your thoughts, I stated firmly, my frustration evident as I delved into his mind. Wow, I was taken aback when I discovered the extensive lifespan of Morlun. After a few minutes of searching, I witnessed the epic final battle between the spiders and the inheritors in his mind. The intensity and magnitude of the conflict are truly remarkable. Misplaced, however, the inheritors were unsuccessful in their endeavor as the totems required for their ritual had been taken from their universe, Earth 001. The spiders, on the other hand, suffered significant losses during the conflict. Despite managing to outnumber and overpower them, the inheritors only managed to eliminate 3 of their adversaries. This proved to be futile, as the spiders had other bodies available for them to inhabit. The spider side suffered the loss of Spider-Man due to the Phoenix and another member due to the Enigma Force, which can be attributed to their overconfidence. I noticed their reaction to sensing my life force, which caused a momentary panic. It seems that my presence can now be felt across universes, making me a potential target for other beings. Morlun and his family discovered me initially because of my close association with Peter over a significant period. Upon seeing us, they mistakenly believed that Peter possessed an abundance of life force. Morlun was the first to discover the right universe, suggesting that the others must be close behind. I unsheathed my sword and tapped into the ethereal energy of the Phantom Zone, swiftly severing his head from his body. With meticulous care, I ensured his soul was ensnared, preventing any possibility of it inhabiting another vessel. Its ultimate destruction will be carried out in due time. I utilize my heat vision to eliminate his entire body, transforming the surrounding sand into molten glass. I take Peter and swiftly open a portal to the fortress, activating its defenses and sending out a signal for Zod to join us. He is currently overseeing the construction of the ship. I arrive at the location where Jean and Hera are, and they immediately approach me with urgency upon spotting me. I provide comfort and share my knowledge about the inheritors, while they embrace me. I am unfamiliar with these inheritors, but based on your description, it seems they have a voracious appetite for Arachne. It is truly astonishing that Athena transformed her into the mother of all spiders on Earth. Hera's voice grew softer towards the end, but I could still make out her words. So what's the plan if they manage to defeat a spider totem using the Phoenix Force, which apparently had a strong command over its powers? I'm not sure how I can be of any assistance, Jean expressed her frustration. I have a method to enhance your cognitive abilities beyond your current level, and fortunately, I have completed the prototype, I informed her, capturing Hera's interest as I described the device that Charles utilized to augment his own powers. Can you guarantee that there won't be any repercussions? Jean expressed concern about the potential consequences, and I share those concerns as well. Marvel is a universe that operates with a careful balance of power and consequences. Even when utilizing technology, there are always negative effects to contend with. Jean's exceptional mental abilities surpass those of anyone else, as my own powers continue to grow thanks to the energy that fuels them. Jean's immense psychic energy in the comics has yet to reach its full potential, possibly even rivaling the Phoenix. It's fascinating to consider the untapped power she possesses. I can hear Zod approaching. I have an appointment to meet him. Zod, prepare yourself, I inform him upon sighting him. What are you prepared for? He pondered. What you were trained for, war, I inform him as he composes himself, preparing to confront the inheritors. Our strategy involves claiming the area surrounding New York as our battleground. After a few hours, I go to check on Peter and notice that he is waking up. 4 days later, the story continues. Zod and I are setting up some traps in a remote area near New York, approximately 20 miles away from the city. Zod is strategically placing them while I am in the process of creating them. Jean and Hera are ensuring that no external parties disrupt the proceedings, while the Ancient One stands prepared in case they venture towards any of the sanctums. This is why I am currently stationed near the one located in New York. Morlun gained access to this universe by forcefully tearing open a rift, much to the delight of eldritch beings who now have a direct passage to Earth. This action, however, has greatly angered the Ancient One and other sorcerers, prompting them to gradually weaken the New York sanctum to confront Morlun on a more accessible level. Nothing seems to be happening, Jean said in my mind as we established a connection that we would terminate upon their arrival. Dealing with inheritors who possess the formidable powers of the Phoenix Force and the Enigma Force, also known as the God of Light. I couldn't help but berate myself for not fully immersing myself in the intricacies of the King in Black storyline. Jean resumed her diligent patrol, leaving me to ponder my lack of attention. Everything appears to be clear, Hera remarked confidently. She has undergone extensive training with Jean and myself, resulting in a significant increase in her power. While she acknowledged that her magical abilities have improved, she also mentioned that her immortality still relies on faith energy. However, she assured us that she is gradually regaining her strength. In fact, she even mentioned that she was capable of lifting over 50 tons at her peak. Currently, she possesses strength and speed comparable to that of Peter Parker. However, she has the unique ability to enhance her physical capabilities through her mastery of magic, harnessing energy from her own dimension. Reflecting on Peter's situation filled me with a sense of sadness. Several days earlier, "Peter, you should take some rest. You're barely healed," I remarked, carefully examining his condition. "Despite my professional use of healing magic, some of your injuries are quite severe." The patient has suffered severe injuries, including a cracked femur, spinal fluid leakage, and multiple fractures on nearly every bone in his body, including his skull. Fortunately, I was able to successfully treat the most severe injuries, which included internal acid burns that were caused by the injection Morlun administered to his veins, resulting in damage to his heart. "I can't believe that person is still out there," he replied, groaning in pain despite the painkillers in his system. "There's no need to be concerned about him," I assured him that I had attended to his well-being, and before any concerns about his demise were raised, I emphasized that the individual in question was a clone and currently resides in an alternate universe. striving to restore his mental stability. I informed him, causing him to cease his movements, albeit with audible discomfort. "Excuse me?" He seemed perplexed by my words, so I proceeded to clarify the concept of inheritors to him. I shared some information, albeit not everything, emphasizing their method of eliminating spider totems. They eliminate alternate versions of me and consume them for their own sustenance, occasionally targeting my family in those realms, he stated with a stoic expression, despite his eyes being concealed as they were recently replaced. "It seems that they are pursuing me now, which will inevitably lead them to this universe," I informed him, tending to his wounds once more. Despite the assistance of medical droids, he still requires ample rest, so I gently induced sleep for his well-being. Flashback concluded, "There's nothing here," Anissa stated through the intercom I provided, as I have yet to grant her access to magic. Zod and Anissa had a captivating encounter, as Anissa was visibly startled upon seeing him again. She has some concerns about him and me to a certain degree. I believe some of the apprehension she had towards me diminished when she overheard me engaging in intimate activities with Jean and Hera. Peter is currently in the fortress, taking some time to rest and heal. I attended to his aunt and informed her that Peter will be staying with me temporarily to work on an important school project. I even called Peter to confirm the arrangement, as if I had gone to pick him up myself. She visited the home of one of her acquaintances to enjoy herself, and I discreetly encouraged her to avoid raising any suspicions. I survey my surroundings, but there is nothing to be seen until a portal suddenly materializes, or rather tears open, in this universe. The sight of it inexplicably fills me with anger. I notice them exiting just as Zod approaches our location. As I activate the Speed Force energy within me, I swiftly deliver a powerful punch to the hungry-looking face before me. I pondered as I readied myself for this confrontation. I am back, expressing this while my scars are causing intense pain. Naruto Pav, I find it surprising that I would punch this individual in the face, considering my superior strength. It should have penetrated his skull, but instead, he is forcefully propelled backward with flames erupting from his nose due to the impact. Admittedly, I am only exerting the same level of force that I employed against Abomination, but nevertheless. "That's Demas," I pondered as I observed him closely, recalling the way he mistreats female totems. I am filled with intense anger as I witness the flames engulfing my surroundings. I silently contemplate my next move as I observe the others approaching me, Brix and Bora. I can't help but admire the sheer strength displayed as Zod effortlessly seizes Demas and delivers a powerful kick to his chest, causing flames to erupt from his mouth. They seem to possess a remarkable ability to absorb life force, even managing to defeat Spider-Man, who was empowered by the Phoenix Force. It's possible that they are harnessing this power to sustain themselves. This theory holds weight considering the spider's connection to the web of life. Additionally, based on the glimpses I caught in Morland's memories, it appears they may also have the Enigma Force in their favor. I noticed the absence of Genix and Solus, so I diligently started listening to every sound in the world, hoping to catch even a hint of the portals they emerged from. However, my efforts were in vain as I couldn't detect any similar sounds or even any disturbances. Zod is relentlessly attacking Demas, but Demas refuses to be defeated, constantly regenerating his wounds. Brix and Bora engage in a thrilling display of skill and power as they hurl knives and telekinetic blasts in my direction. With my telekinesis, I effortlessly halt the knives in midair and redirect them back towards them, while their telekinetic blasts leave deep imprints in the ground. I withstand the full force of the blast as they attempt to assault my mind. However, I remain unaffected, while Zod, on the other hand, shows signs of discomfort. Without hesitation, I swiftly create a protective barrier around him, shielding his mind from harm. I communicated to Zod, Jean, and Hera through telepathy, informing them that I was preventing the inheritors from making contact with others by creating a protective barrier. Jean and Hera maintained a vigilant watch, ready to intervene if anyone approached too closely. Suddenly, all three of them started emitting a radiant glow, accompanied by the emergence of flames. Their screams filled the air. Brix and Bora seized my arms, attempting to tear them off, but I swiftly retaliated by forcefully slamming the two fools. I couldn't help but notice that they had become stronger, but Demo still possessed superior strength. He delivered a powerful punch to Zod, sending him soaring through the air. Determined, Demos pursued him, only to be met with Zod's failed attempt to defeat him using his heat vision, which Demos effortlessly absorbed. I observed the altercation as I swiftly intervene, bringing the two individuals together with force, resulting in minor injuries. Although I can't help but feel a sense of remorse for my actions, I dismiss it and continue. As I forcefully throw one of them to the ground, causing him to soar through the dirt, I swiftly retrieve my sword while tightening my grip around Bora's neck. Someone please suggest a suitable name for the sword. I severed her head while ensuring her soul remained trapped, but my focus is suddenly drawn to Demas and Brix, who appear to be growing more powerful. A vibrant red-orange energy emanates from Bora's body and transfers into them. I allow this to occur, sensing their newfound strength as they turn their gaze towards me. Brix aggressively approaches me. What have you done to her? He expresses intense rage and animosity, unleashing fiery wings from his back before soaring towards me. Swiftly, I seize his face and deliver a decisive blow to his heart. With a fluid motion, I raise the sword, slicing from the heart to the head, effectively cleaving him in two. Once more, I witness the departure of what appears to be the powerful energy of the Phoenix Force, as I successfully capture his soul. I am restraining myself. I haven't made any serious attempts. I haven't utilized the full potential of my abilities or explored different sources of power. Then I recall the Phoenix 5 and how their powers were divided, but it appears that they do not possess physical fragments of it. It appears to be more of an enhancement to their authority. I shake my head and approach Demas, swiftly disabling his limbs. As he screams and thrashes, I delve into his mind, tearing it apart while his futile resistance continues. The abhorrent actions he has committed fill me with utter disgust. A Spider-Man from a TV show was killed, and a despicable individual violated Firestar against her will. The Iceman and the Spider-Man from that Earth were forced to witness this horrific act. Even after her death, the perpetrator continued to defile her lifeless body. I have some specific plans for this individual. However, he did demonstrate something that greatly discouraged me from visiting Loon World. It turns out that in this entirely different universe, they also possess Infinity Stones, which they discovered by venturing to another Earth. This discovery was considered too perilous due to the presence of a single spider. A Spider-Man equipped with an Infinity Gauntlet, after a span of 2 weeks. Naruto's point of view: I am currently at the fortress, diligently working on my kryptonian air magic. According to the records, I should be able to manifest objects using my energy. However, I have been facing some challenges in this area, as I haven't been able to successfully create anything. It's been quite a struggle for me. I take a deep breath and go inspect the ship's progress. The project is nearly complete. When I discovered the actions of Demas towards Firestar, it filled me with anger, not just because of my strong dislike for individuals like him. Firestar resembled Jean upon witnessing her cries and hearing her screams. I couldn't help but be struck by the resemblance she bore and the intensity with which she expressed her distress. It stirred within me a strong desire to come to her aid, even though it was merely a recollection. I brought him into the space between universes and kept him there until he was completely obliterated. Even if he ended up in another multiverse, I drew inspiration from the legend of Korra. I inserted an unspecified number of metals into his system and removed his eyes and fragments of his body. When I stopped, Zod was simply observing me. Recognizing that something had upset me, I informed him about our telepathic capabilities, although he currently possesses only a limited ability to hear surface thoughts. Additionally, he has yet to embark on the journey of mastering telekinesis, as he is unsure of where to begin. It took me a moment to figure it out, but then I remembered my desire to be free from the restrictions imposed on Kryptonians. It was a revelation to me, as I came to understand the extent of my own shortcomings. Zod's words made it clear that maintaining composure on Earth requires constant vigilance against the overwhelming sensory stimuli. I found it quite natural to excel in my field, as my skills came to me effortlessly. I was aware of the immense power that a Kryptonian possesses, but it took Kal-El many years to fully harness and control his abilities. Superman was created with the concept of limitless abilities, as if a divine being resided on Earth. I have only been harnessing solar energy for a much shorter duration compared to Kal. However, my time spent in the sun quickly resolved that issue. I won't even consider the time I spent in the blue sun in the zone, or my ability to adapt and absorb. It seems that I am reaching the limits of my abilities within the Marvel multiverse or even Mark's multiverse. There are formidable opponents like Doomsday and Brainiac lurking, but I must admit that I can handle them quite effortlessly now. I have developed a strategy inspired by Doomsday's abilities, ensuring that he wouldn't stand a chance in the vast expanse between multiverses. Brainiac is a bit more challenging, but honestly, I would be more concerned if he entered the Marvel multiverse and gained access to any of its metals. I contemplate the need to temporarily depart in order to acquire distinct abilities that I am confident I can obtain. My attention is drawn to my multiverse probe, a tool I will release into the vast unknown to locate any desired multiverse for exploration. I established a strong connection with it, ensuring its protection from the void by keeping it linked to my energy. I could potentially acquire the Golden Sentry Serum from the Marvel multiverse, specifically seeking a refined version that possesses the complete power of the merged Sentry, without any negative aspects such as the void. I am currently engaged in a celestial egg ritual to fully harness and integrate my adaptation and absorption abilities. I could potentially locate the Infinity Stones in a different universe with minimal life and retrieve them from there. I find the Infinity Stones to be somewhat disappointing, as they do not function in other universes. However, I can still attempt to harness my adaptation to acquire some of the powers they bestow. However, I am uncertain about the effectiveness of absorbing their energy once I depart from the universe they originate from. What else could I possibly desire from the Marvel multiverse? The Dragon Ball version of Ki is superior. The metals I currently possess. I don't find any value in the heart-shaped herb, but perhaps Jean or anyone who requires it can obtain it if I acquire it from Wakanda. The Sentry Serum is superior to the Super Soldier Serum. I have already created a weapon that surpasses Excalibur in strength and coolness. I pause to reflect on my extensive research on the X gene and choose to bide my time until some of the formidable individuals make their appearance. Which multiverse would be most advantageous for me? Stay tuned for more. And that's a wrap for now. Thank you so much for tuning into this incredible video. If you absolutely loved it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for even more amazing content coming your way.